Hi guys, Dave at the Humble Trekker channel. How you doing out there? Today I'm going to be going out in the woods, finding 3 different tinders that you can pick up straight away and with minimal processing, light with a ferrocerium rod. It's going to be birch bark, fatwood and juniper bark. 3 sources of tinder that are readily available in the northern European woods. These are 2 likely fatwood stumps of old pine trees that looking a bit jaggedy, a bit pointy. Here we got one about 8 inches across, and here there's one about 16 inches across. So you never really know until you get into the log, into the stump, if it contains fatwood. But from the outside you can get an idea if it's a likely stump, and this is likely. It's definitely a old pine tree, and it's got these like pointed spires coming out, and that's often a signal that it's going to contain fatwood. One here at the back also again spires. It's rotten there, which isn't a good sign. This one's pretty solid. That's normally a good sign. Now, to get the fatwood out, all you need to do is just start hacking away at it with an axe or a large chopping knife. And as you get into it, you can pull a bit out and you can start to look at it. And already I can see this is not primo fatwood, but what you're looking for is a little bit of redness in it. And then sniff it. There's a little bit of redness there, and it is actually smelling quite piney, quite pitchy. So I think this is probably not the greatest fatwood, but probably a viable source of some fatwood here. This looks, and also you've got to look for like these crystalline parts of it. Yeah, I'm happy that this is going to be some usable fatwood, so I'll carry on and collect more of it. This is a juniper tree or juniper bush, and the juniper tree has very flaky, scaly bark, and this is what you want to initially collect, and then you have to turn it into a more fibrous material. But we're going to collect this first by, you can just pull it off with your fingers. This is a virtually dead juniper, it's on the way to dying, so don't stress out too much, guys. I'm taking much bark off the dead parts of the tree. So I start to collect handfuls of this flaky bark. Another technique is that you can use the back of a knife to collect the bark. This is a great source of birch bark, a freshly downed, quite young tree. And you just slice off the bark in strips, which you can then save for later use in your kit. I'm going to use a ferrocerium rod to light each of those 3 tinders now that I've collected, and just to extend the flames a little bit once I've caught a spark, I'm going to be adding in bracken, dried bracken, which I've picked up off the ground. To prepare the juniper bark to take a spark, you see I've got a handful of it here. This is straight off the tree. Now what I want to do is make it more fibrous, create more surface area, and to do that I scrunch it up and tease it out to try and get fibres to appear, especially dry fibres. You can see probably dust coming out of it, just the dry fibres creating, and you can hear the crunch. So let me work on this and then we'll take it to the spark. And what it actually ends up looking like is kind of like a fur ball. Doesn't really look anything like. Just looks like a furry fur ball instead of the bark that came from the tree. I'm going to light the juniper bark. go to work on the birch bark. With the birch bark, you want to get a piece looking a bit like this, and then you've got to turn the surface into a dust. You've got to create a surface dust of birch bark. You can even use tip of a knife like this. Fairly self-explanatory what you're doing. It's very similar techniques with lighting tinder like this with a spark from a ferrocerium rod, is that you're always trying to create a greater surface area, so you've got a lot of oxygen getting into the potential combustion substrate. So you can use a tip of a knife like that. Often you find ferrocerium strikers which come with a teethed end like this, and that's very good for scraping up surfaces and creating dust too. I think the knife was working a little bit better on this. If it's a much drier piece of bark than this is, which is actually wet because it's been raining a lot, this toothed end works very well. It seems on this bit of birch, the size of your pile of dust, you want about 1/2 inch, I guess, diameter. That's normally a pretty safe pile of dust to start, which will take a spark. Bigger the pile, the more chances you've got. Let's take the ferrocerium rod and try and put a spark into the pile. There we go. Oh, went well, worked very well. And then we'll bring in our fir, dried fir. I dropped a wet leaf on it, which will act as our substitute bird's nest. It's nice and windy today. So you can see, if you properly prepared a bird nest, you can get a fire going. With that birch bark dust. Nice. To light the fat wood, let me clean up this piece of fat wood and get rid of all the green stuff on it. This is a piece of fat wood now underneath it, which is going to be a substrate to balance on. And I'm not going to make, you might think I'm going to make a curly stick, feather stick, but I'm not going to do that. What I do, for simplicity, because I think it requires much less fine motor skills and gives you just the same result, is I just create curls on my substrate. Where the fire's going to be, and then I create a dust of fat wood to add to that, the dust being the stuff which is going to easiest capture the spark from the ferrocerium rod. And as with anything, preparation is key. In order of usefulness, I'm going to rate it this way. Number one, sitting at the top of the tree, birch bark. Easily harvestable, easily recognisable, easy to process and takes a spark without any trouble whatsoever. Number 2, I'm going to go for very close between the juniper and the fatwood. I think there's pros and cons to both of them. Juniper is easy to recognise, it's easy to get to, you can just use your hands to pull it off a tree. It does take more processing, and it's the one that is most susceptible to dampness in my experience. But if you can collect enough of it, and if you can collect a real good bunch of it, I didn't collect that much today in this demonstration, but if you can really get a big bunch of it, like a big cabbage sized lump of it, and then screw it all up, get it really, really fibrous and dusty, then it's a really good tinder. Just to keep on that one I had today, which was about the size of an egg, that was a bit marginal. I was just using it for demonstration. And then fatwood is great to have in your kit as a long-term tinder to always keep there, because you know you can't crush it, you can just keep a piece always in your pocket, whereas with your birch bark you can crush it up, crumble it up, it disappears. Juniper bark, you know, that can just turn into dust and just disappear. But what's good about fatwood, it's always going to be there. You can put it in your pocket, put it in a pouch, and you're always going to be able to find it. It does require more preparation. If you're good at making fire sticks, do that, go for it that way. If you do it the more humble way that I do it, you can try it that way. But once you've got it, and also of course you might not actually get fatwood out of the ground, you might see a stump there which you think is fatwood, spend all that time digging it out, chopping it out, start scraping it, and it's not actually fatwood, and it's not going to do you a lot of good. So number 1, birch bark, then following up behind juniper and the fatwood. Juniper's got some positives, some negatives. Fatwood's got some positives and some negatives. The joy is that you've got these 3 options in the northern woods. You can nearly always find it, and if you've got a fair seeing rod, you can always start a fire. Don't forget, if in doubt, take a box of matches. I always do, or a lighter. And if you're a subscriber, thanks for being subscribed. If you're not a subscriber, consider subscribing. If you like what you see, smash down that subscribe button, and I'll see you all next time. It's for investors. Strike anywhere matches. Take it easy, guys.